Hello, it's me, Jess. Welcome to my channel. I'm here with another channeled message. This is a specific message. It might resonate with you. It might not. All right. So I feel like there is karma going down for a lot of people actually, but let me just tell you what I'm seeing in my mind's eye. So I'm seeing a masculine who is very engrossed in whatever it is that he's doing. And there is some kind of routine aspect to whatever this is. So this could be work, this could be a project, this could be like a hobby person, or he could just be going about the routines and habits of his daily life. But it looks from the outside like he's very focused on whatever this is that he's doing, when actually he is very deep in thought and he's being very contemplative about a number of things actually. But the first thing that they're giving me here that he's contemplating is they're showing me two Queen of Wands. And I think for some of you, these are two specific women that this man is contemplating, that he's attracted to both of these women, like very strongly attracted, but for very different reasons, because these women are very different from one another. And it also could be that these are just two different types of women in general that he's involved with over the course of his life. And he's just noticed this kind of like general trend of like, well, I am attracted to these traits in this kind of woman, at a certain time in my life. I wonder why that is, and I'm attracted to this kind of woman with these kind of traits at a different time. I wonder why that is. He's getting very curious. This is like a jump off point here, these two Queen of Wands, where he's getting very curious about his own behavior and why he does the things that he does. And this comes back to decisional energy. Why did I make certain decisions at certain points in my life? And all of that kind of added up to end me up here in this particular situation at this particular time. It's something here like that. Now, the last thing that I feel like this could be is he's contemplating very deeply one woman who is very different now, or there's like a different way that she treats him. And he could be thinking about her in different settings or different circumstances. Like, okay, well, you were this way and now you're this way. And it could actually be all of the above for some of you. Because like I said, this is a very contemplative moment in time for this masculine energy. And he's kind of layering things up and really trying to understand his feelings and where they come from and his decisions and his path and et cetera, et cetera. Now, what I will say about these two Queen of Wands is they both look to be very angry. So I don't know if he's contemplating their anger, because I feel like these women are very different from one another. And I think he synthesizes that through anger, because they both get mad about very different things. I think one woman here, she gets angry about the routine energy. He doesn't show up for their kids. He's not responsible. He can't sustain. I really feel like this is a man who he can't sustain. He knows that on some level. He doesn't want to look at it, but I think he does kind of know that he's incapable of that. So that makes her very angry. She kind of holds him to a standard that he can't or doesn't meet, something like that. There's another woman here that I think she gets very angry with him over attention. Like when he doesn't give her attention or the right kind of attention, and then she acts out. And I think he gets very flattered by that, but he shouldn't. And we'll talk more about that, in just a second, because it really is less about him. This is more like of an addictive energy between the two of them. And I don't think he's gotten to the point of unpacking that fully, but he's just at this beginning stage of kind of understanding that there's also a different way that each of these women expresses their anger in terms of like their body language and stuff. And both of these women might be angry with this masculine at this current time, because right now, like I said, there is karma going down. But the truth is, this man, I think, has lived a very karmic life, and he has enacted these karmic cycles over and over and over and over again. And at this moment, though, again, it feels like there's a zenith. It feels like there's this kind of peak of this karmic energy. And this one does feel a little bit different. And I think that it is this contemplative energy that's kind of finally budded out. It's kind of finally arisen where he is actually thinking about these things and contemplating these things instead of just merely living them out. And when I'm talking about this like peak energy here, think about this, because he's gone around and around in karmic cycles, right? But think of that cyclical energy like the moon, right? It wanes and it waxes, but when it reaches its fullness, right? Like that's when it is brightest in the sky and you can kind of see around. So that's what I'm talking about. There's this zenith energy where it's bright now and he can see kind of in the dark, and he can see more about this kind of subconscious energy than he could in the past. And what I'm getting for this guy, I don't think that he's able to see this yet. Well, he's at that point though, where the karmic cycle has kind of come to fruition. It's unknown whether or not he can break this karmic cycle, because this is a big karmic cycle. He has all of the pieces to be able to do that. But in order to do that, he's got to put all the data points together. He has to see the full cycle and what keeps it together. And then he's got to choose who he wants to be and exit this cycle. But there's also a possibility here where he just goes back around again. And what he needs to kind of see and recognize is they're showing me an infant. Okay. I feel like this man is kind of an infant. And what I mean by that is, an infant they experience sensations, right? But they don't really understand what they need in order. They know that they're uncomfortable, and that's when they cry out. But their caregiver is the one that understands you're crying because you need a change, or you're crying because you're hungry, and meets the need. And he's in that level of an energy because he doesn't have much insight. He just knows when he's uncomfortable. So he's driven by sensations, and he needs somebody to burp him. He needs somebody to fart him because he's not big enough to do it on his own, to regulate something internally. And that is actually the key of breaking free of this cycle, because as it stands, he'll have a certain need, and impulsively he will chase that out in the external world. And I think that's where these two Queen of Wands come in, and they both love in very different ways, and they provide him something different. And so being around one of these women, I kind of feel like one of these women does feed him, like fills him up, because there's investment energy, because this is like quite a giving, cooperative person. And she sees in him, like he'll come to her at this stage in his cycle and he'll say all the right things and he'll genuinely mean it, which makes this man a very convincing liar. He's also a user. His karma is expressed very differently in relationship to each of these women, but they do express. And I feel like that explains the pull and the attraction that he feels towards these very different women, or very different kinds of women. And his karma has to do with relationship type stuff. His soul wants, and I think needs on some level, to learn about relationships. What is the stuff that a relationship is made of? How do you keep one going? What is the value that it brings? It's those kinds of things. And like I said, it's expressed very differently in each one of these relationships, because with this divine feminine over here. Now, okay, let me say this first though. I'm going to call one of these women a divine feminine. I'm going to call another one of these women a karmic feminine. Now, there's karma playing out for everybody in this situation, right? And that is some kind of like friction or restriction or authority that they have to grapple with their spiritual lessons. So I want to address that here. There's an equality amongst these people in certain ways, right? And that's one of them. They're all learning karmas. They're all human beings, and they're all God's children. And in that way, they all deserve respect and love and patience and whatever it is that they need. Now, there is also a deep inequality here. And if you do not acknowledge the inequality in skill set, in intentionality, in level of development and skill, then you are forever going to miss the point here, and your reflection is not going to gain traction. So we've got to deal with the inequality. And the way that I want to describe this, it's the same as there's an inequality between a third grader and a seventh grader. There's an inequality between a seventh grader and a sophomore in high school and a sophomore in college, right? That is the inequality here. And this divine feminine for me is very clearly more advanced, more mature, and kind of leading the way here, and is providing that kind of healthier mirror of, hey, look, this is what it should look like. And I think this masculine and this karmic feminine are looking at themselves in this mirror, and it's bringing up their shadow material for them to grapple with and learn from. But what I want to say about this divine feminine is her level of development, going back to this like school model, it's on the scale of, she needs to go to junior high. Junior high is in an entirely different building than the elementary school that these other two are in. And it's an entire new level of autonomy and self-sufficiency, because she's going to have her own locker, and she has to get herself, to these other classrooms, and she needs to be around other kids or other students, in the earth school that are also capable of doing that. And if she gets too involved with this masculine energy, who is incapable of meeting his own karmas here in a way that is healthy, in a way that is fair, in a way that is genuinely learning his lessons, then she doesn't want to have to keep shuttling herself back to the elementary school, because these two have kids that they have to raise together, and these two still take naps and pee their pants, and it's going to be shocking for her, because it's not what she's around like in her own life. And that's the difference here. Like it's imperative. I think it's more imperative for this divine feminine to kind of get herself up and away, because she is sort of on a different level, but that different level is, it's much different, you know, in that same way. And I just wanted to point that out. Okay. Now, the other thing, I'm calling one of these people a divine feminine here because she's a genuine soulmate to this masculine, where him and this karmic feminine over here, they're not soulmates. They are karmics to each other, in the sense that everybody here is learning a karmic lesson. When this masculine learns his karmic lesson, and when this, his divine feminine learns their karmic lesson, it's going to bring a genuine intimacy. It's going to bring them closer together because they're soulmates and they naturally belong together. And the two of them and everyone around them benefits when they are together in this way. God knows that. God paired these two up in God's infinite wisdom. Not the same for him and his karmic feminine over here. When they learn their karmic lessons, they will move farther apart. I'm actually hearing they'll have nothing more to do with each other. There won't be the attraction here. I think they'll actually even be skeezed out, that they even involved with this other person in this way, or that they ever found the other person attractive, when they actually acquaint themselves with truth and reality in this situation. And that will mean that they've learned their karmic lesson. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So I'm not trying to like put anybody down. It's just, that's the reality. We all have karmics and we all have soulmates. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles in this particular scenario. But we have to be willing to look at it like that so that we know the next move to make. And so I think, especially for this masculine and this karmic feminine, there's a lot of like, well, and even with this divine feminine, there's a lot of like, well, I'm very confused, you know, and I don't know what it is to do. And I think this basic foundation of, you know, it needs to be acknowledged. And I think the only one that would be different is with this divine feminine. She can clearly sense that he's her soulmate, but homeboy doesn't function. So it's like, well, what do I do? This is my soulmate. Well, she's got to choose herself. And this divine feminine is actually very good in relationships. And relationship, it's like giving and taking. But I think her lessons have to do with choosing her and knowing when it's appropriate to give and when it's actually not. And you need to be more protective because she actually brings the stuff. You know what I'm saying? She's the only one offering anything of actual value here. She needs to recognize that. And where there's value, you need to have a way of defending it and protecting it. And that's what she's, I think, learning how to do as a part of being in a relationship, knowing when to pull that ripcord, you know, kind of a thing. But these two, I think, the masculine and the karmic feminine here, they have a shared impulsivity here that I'll talk about. But it actually centers around control and maintaining control. And so it doesn't make sense to them to move away from their karmic relationship because it means that they have to relinquish control and they can't fathom something working, especially working out in their benefit, if they relinquish control. And that's a hurdle that they kind of have to work up to overcoming. But I think it will come from being just absolutely grossed out and incensed at what they've involved with here between the two of them and who they've involved with. And I think that'll snap something and then their life will start going a lot better. And then that's going to spark a curiosity and learning, I think, about these skills that because they both need to learn about relationships, this masculine and this karmic feminine, and they're both the takers in their relationships. And I think they can be quite confusing for people because they'll talk the relationship talk, but if you notice, it's all from the perspective of like their needs not being met. And it's because neither of these people thinks about, what do I bring to the table? Neither one of it wouldn't internally, I'm talking about privately, because these are the very kinds of people, they're very tricky, and I think they're very capable on a social level. They'll hear somebody like me talk about this and they'll be like, oh shit, the fact that I'm not up to snuff has probably, this is a way I've become aware of how people can become aware that I'm selfish in my relationships and I'm not actually the real deal, but I want to be seen as somebody who's really good in relationships. And part of that is shirking accountability because I think that they have been involved with someone, both of these people, this masculine and this karmic feminine. They really owe these people a lot. They're soulmates. They owe them an apology. They owe them cleaning up their mess and taking accountability. But you have to admit that you've done something wrong in order to do that. So they try to outrun that. And so they'll hear somebody like me say that. And instead of being like, holy shit, I was in the wrong. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Oh my God, are you okay? Instead of that, and actually like dealing in reality, they will instead have some kind of performative conversation at an opportune moment whereby they talk about briefly for a moment in time, you know, what they give to the table. And I don't feel like I give enough, or I don't this or that, but then they never do anything to stop it. And so it's you have to really hear beyond what somebody is saying, because I'm just telling you that's the kind of people that these two people are. Okay, so anyways, like I said, his karmas are expressing much differently, and he's drawn to these relationships to stare in the mirror. With this divine feminine, he stares at his higher nature and what he could be. But it's not enough to just decide, okay, yeah, I want to be my higher self. Well, we all want to be our higher self. You have to have a skill set. And learning a skill takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes dedication and grit and determination. And he needs to figure out how to plug himself into that, where he keeps pursuing his higher nature, because he understands. So he needs to understand the value of it. That's what this divine feminine can provide, because she is relationship. That's what she embodies. And that's the blessing that she brings. But for him, at the beginning, it does provide a bit of a paradoxical hurdle, because she is this relationship energy, meaning as a soul, she's very good at this. She's very good at relationship. She has other karmas that she's learning. And I think it's Aries. It's how to be more independent, how to stand up for herself. I think she actually does that kind of okay, maybe out in the world, but it's within the confines of relationship. Again, knowing where your boundaries are. And with this guy, there'll be places, okay, that you have to put your foot down and say, there's things that he could potentially do, because he's got free will, that you would literally have to say, no, that is beneath me. It's not something I fuck with. And he's going to provide those opportunities for her to practice that, right? But like I said, she involves relationship. Now, so his karmas, the way that it expresses here with this divine feminine is it's much more internal than it is over here with this karmic feminine. Because both him and this karmic feminine, like I said, they're the takers in their relationship. They're both selfish and they're both impulsive. So there's a lot of blowout fights over here, because they're both extremely needy, and neither one of them is capable of meeting their own needs, which means that they are not capable of meeting someone else's needs in a healthy, balanced, and sustainable way. So they'll grow increasingly frustrated with each other. And it's very cyclical, but I'm seeing like tight cycles where they just have these blowout fights. And it's very cathartic for both of these souls, because their dysfunction and the way that they feel on the inside, this like frustration, it's expressed externally in the world. And it allows both of them to point the finger at the other one. You're a crazy bitch, you're a crazy hoe. And that's why we fight all the time. And it's just a complete and utter lack of accountability, but that feels more comfortable for these two. And again, it's like this very kind of cathartic nature, until it'll really wear on somebody over time, which is, I think, when he runs back over here to his divine feminine, or this more nurturing kind of relationship oriented feminine, says, I don't want to be in this over here. Because these two, this karmic feminine, they may have been in a relationship. They may not have. I think it probably started as an affair. Or if it didn't start that way, they could have dated each other, but then had an affair. Or they could have just been playing the field. You know, this is like, I don't know what we are kind of a thing. And if they've ever been in a quote unquote relationship, no, they have not been. Okay. Because it means something different to these two than it would mean to you or to me. They deploy no relationship skills. What they mean is that they live together, they hold hands, they put their tongues in each other's mouths, but neither one of these people have like relationship skills. And it's just crazy making. Whereas, so that his karmas are very much expressed externally and together. And it also, he compares himself to both of these women, and he thinks he's better than this karmic feminine, or at least like equal. So he doesn't feel lacking, and that feels real to him. Right? So, okay, going back over here with this divine feminine, like I said, his karmas are expressed more internally over here with her, where he feels that friction and that frustration, the coldness, maybe the authority, the frustration, but it's more on an internal level. And that provides to him a very paradoxical opportunity, whereby he can win big, or he can lose big, and he can try to have that cathartic express externally moment with his karmic feminine over here and lose big. And what I mean by lose big is lose his divine feminine, possibly his family, the things that he's built. That's all teaching him the things that relationship brings. Because if he can value that, he'll stay with trying to learn, right? Because he knows he's going to win big. Anyways, so this internalness can feel very isolating, and he's very selfishly oriented, very self-involved, and he views himself very independently, even in the confines of this relationship that he has with this divine feminine, which can be healthy, but not the way that he does it. So he compares himself to his divine feminine. And of course, he compares himself unfavorably, because he wants to compare his day one of learning about relationships. And he's just in this relationship because he decides, okay, I want to be in this now, but has no skills. He wants to compare his day one to her having a master's degree. And so in comparing that, the frustration builds and he feels lacking. And because he's quite a controlling person and very selfish, he assumes that she must be doing that to him on purpose. And so, like I said, it presents this very paradoxical choice. And the choice for him is how he's going to deal with that. And if he demonstrates that he has in fact learned a single thing, a one thing, anything, he will engage in Libran activities, meaning he will have a conversation, a one-to-one conversation with her that is above all else fair and balanced. And what I mean by that is not blaming her because he feels frustrated and he feels like he needs to be an expert on day one, and that's crazy. If he has a fair and balanced conversation with her and says, look, I am feeling this way, and he's vulnerable and he's open, what it does is it gives her an opportunity to be a human being to him, which she isn't, because he pedestals her. And he thinks that because she's good at something, that it must be easy for her, and it's not. And he can relate to this. This is an introduction in empathy. He can relate to this because there's things in his life that he's very good at, that he's done forever, and it's just second nature to him. But actually, sometimes it does present a bit of a challenge in terms of its maintenance or its upkeep. And he knows that it took him a long time to get there, and that if he was teaching her about, I don't know, say he works on like motorcycles or something, she's not going to know how the engine works on day one, but he would tell her the things that he needs to be telling to himself. Well, be patient. Of course, you don't know how this works on day one. And he gives her an opportunity to say that, but also to be a person, because I think there's something here like with this karmic feminine, well, she's expressed interest and he's actually tempted, and he jumps in. He deploys no self-discipline. Whereas he doesn't see that his divine feminine here is a person, like goes through very similar things. There could be somebody at work that she maybe finds very attractive. She just would never, because she values him. She values their family. She values being a good person. She values self-discipline and has deployed that. Because I'm kind of getting something here of like, he thinks he's got a chip on the shoulder of like, yeah, see, you didn't know what you let go of because I'm so foxy and like she wanted me over here. And this woman, his divine feminine, is like, I had 7 opportunities to cheat on you yesterday. You are beneath me. Okay. I don't think this makes you cool that you can't control yourself and that you wet the bed. This is like the sexual equivalent of I pee my pants. Like, that's how she looks at it. And he doesn't see that because it makes him involving with his karmic feminine. It restores for him a sense of dominance and a sense of control. But that's not the way that she looks at it. But if he starts this conversation, he might find that it's not as easy for her as he thinks, that she's burnt out and she doesn't feel like she's doing a good job. And, all the little things that she's let slide through the cracks or something. And they can laugh about it together. And also she might say something like, well, yeah, I'm really good at relationship. And first of all, I see that you're trying. I know that it's not as second nature to you. And I appreciate that. Thank you, for not harming me and our children and our family. Thank you for not being that guy. That means the world to me. And also, here's the things that you bring to my life. I'm not so good at this or that. And actually, I watch you and I learn and I feel inadequate around this or that. And they're a person to each other, and that's real intimacy, and they are closer together and they're more partner joined. And that's kind of what it is. Now, this divine feminine has investment energy. And I think her karmas have a lot to do with that. So first of all, realizing that she has built here for herself in this lifetime or in other lifetimes, something that is very valuable, something that is precious, and it makes the difference for people. So first, she does have to become aware of whatever this is, and that it is in fact valuable. Now that might actually be money, assets, resources. Even if she's not fabulously wealthy, this could be somebody that has stability, maybe has their own place, has their own car. And maybe they don't see that as being very valuable. They kind of like downplay that because they're like, oh, well, everybody has this, when not everybody does have that. And it could also be another thing where, okay, well, of course I let my boyfriend use my car because we're in a relationship and I have one and he doesn't, and I want him to do well and he needs to be able to get hither to thither, when in fact you don't have to let him use your car. And maybe under certain circumstances, you shouldn't let him use your car. It is your decision though. And your car should not just be a given, or your place or your money, your investment in that way. Just because you have it, it shouldn't be expected that you have to hand it over just because you're in a relationship. That sets up a very usury, transactional kind of dynamic that, which then I think affects the way he views her and the way that he treats her, because he just starts to feel entitled. Now, that same pattern holds true even if it's not money. And even if you have money or like something here like that, I think there's something else here too that you're supposed to become aware of that is very valuable. These are things like your time, your love, your patience. You could be very knowledgeable about something. Maybe you're, teaching this person something that you know about. All of that is precious. It makes the difference for people. People really bloom under that light of your attention, your guidance, your patience, your love. All of that, right, is very valuable. And again, it's yours. You are the arbiter. Just because you're in a relationship with somebody doesn't mean that you have to give it on their terms. That's what it feels like, in a way that they're saying, okay, they feel kind of expected to that, right? And that ties in with kind of taking your power back in this situation, which loops this back around to this like relationship aspect. Because like I said, I feel like this divine feminine is very good in relationships, and especially the parts of relationship that a lot of people would say are the harder part, which is being very selfless, being a sharing kind of person. And I think for this divine feminine though, it's solidified into her identity in some way where she identifies herself as a giver. And she comes by this actually very honestly because it genuinely makes her feel good to be of service and to give to other people. And I think the reason it makes her feel good is because there is some kind of love or healing energy for her past self. Because whenever she was amassing whatever this is or building whatever this is, in this lifetime or other lifetimes, there is this memory signature that she has of being in that 5 of Pentacles energy where she felt lacking and she had to build it, and she thought to herself, man, I wish that I had a helping hand right about now. I wish there was a partner here that would help me carry the load, even if just for a moment in time, that would mean the world to me. And what she's saying is, she would really appreciate that. That's what she realizes. So when she is confronted with another person or people in that 5 of Pentacles energy, that lack energy, and she can see that in them, she over empathizes with them in a way that maybe she shouldn't, in a way that she's kind of projecting her own self onto them because she sees the lack, it's a trigger, and then she projects her own qualities onto that person when it may or may not be there. And that's when, she's meant to kind of like assess that. And so she genuinely wants to be that giving person, that helping hand that she knows she was yearning for at that current time, because she knows that she would have appreciated it. But I think that because she devalues some kind of, this, whatever she has there that's valuable. Like she doesn't herself look at it like it's valuable and as precious as it is. I think she attracts people that also devalue that, but they devalue it in a way where it's very expecting. It's very expectant, of her. That, well, because you have it and I don't, you should give it to me. And I'm going to be in control of whether or not you get to call yourself a good person, because if you don't give it to me, then you're not a good person. And I'm going to reflect that back. And we're going to have an argument whereby which I'd call you selfish when actually I'm the one that's being selfish. It's that kind of an energy. And it snowballs into this pattern where this divine feminine, I think, is expectant. People expect things of her and it takes her power away when really everybody here needs to get on the same page of this is hers and she does get to decide. And it ties back into relationships because, again, relationships ruled over by Libra, and there are certain decisions, right, which is a Libra word, that are not actually together decisions, even if you are in a relationship with somebody. And I feel like that's hard for this divine feminine to kind of parse through, because she also wants to be a leader in this relationship aspect. Like if I lead with the giving energy, then you're going to see that, value that, and follow my suit. Well, some people are very selfishly oriented. And I feel like this masculine is and just feels like, haha, I got what I wanted, something there like that. So being confronted with that in a person, she has to really step back and say, I'm not going to invest in this space. Whether she has already in the past or not, I'm not going to invest in this space. And she has to know within herself that when somebody comes back and says, well, you owe me and you have to, that she doesn't in fact owe them. And it is her decision. There are some decisions here, and involving with someone is her decision, right? So that's a big part of the karmas that are playing out for her. And I think there's also an aspect here of Schmegs, that she's learning something about Schmegs. But I think, again, that even folds into this investment energy, because that's how she uses Schmegs. is Schmegs for her is an investment in another person, but it's this building energy. We build connection. We build our knowledge about the other person, and we build our fun. Like, it's an investment energy, where this masculine does not view sex that way, and neither does this karmic feminine. They're much more selfish with it. It's much more cutlery, like disposable cutlery, but also they use it for selfish purposes, to gain an advantage, to look a certain way. That's how, and I think that may be a very painful part of this lesson. If it does go that far, but I think that would probably, that's the risk here of involving with this masculine. Okay, so now that we've talked about that, let's jump over here to this karmic feminine side, and where she overlaps with this masculine, because keep in mind, his karma is expressed differently with each of these feminines, and he is drawn to both of them in order to stare in the mirror at himself. And so there's a lot of overlap here with this divine feminine about his higher natures and his potential and what he is in fact capable of. And he gets to experience the value that a relationship, a healthy, genuine relationship, brings to his life. Now, over here with this karmic feminine, again, there's a lot of overlap between the two of them. There's a lot of mirroring here. So, this connection and the karmas that are being worked out, like I said, both of these people are the takers in their relationships, and both of these people are actually attached to a genuine soulmate energy. His is this divine feminine, and this karmic feminine also has a divine masculine out there somewhere. I think for some of these karmic feminines, they have already met their divine masculine in this lifetime, and they've already been involved with each other, had a relationship with one another, whether they've broken up or whether they are still together, because it could be that this karmic feminine and this masculine jumped in together and both cheated on their divine partners together in the same instance. It could be that. It also could be that this karmic feminine has not yet met her divine masculine in this lifetime, and that would be because of a strong karmic stipulation that she has to completely deal with her karmic issues that draw her towards this karmic masculine, and she has to be entirely done with this karmic masculine and this karmic relationship. And I'm not talking about like, and you've hurt me for the last time, I'm done. You know, there's still emotion there. There's still a draw there. I'm talking about she's completely and utterly uninterested in him and what he has to offer because she's healed herself. Because here's the thing, to know the truth is to not be attracted to each other for these two karmic individuals. Right? And so she needs to get to that place. And I think that stipulation was put there because of the severity of what was done to this divine masculine in a past life by this karmic feminine. And perhaps this masculine was involved in that as well. And by the way, I'm hearing that's where this masculine is going with his divine feminine soulmate partner over here. It's either already done or he's well on his way, where he will not meet her in future incarnations because of possibly the severity of what was done, or because she's set that stipulation because she's learned all she needs to learn here. So I think it will be the same for him, where he won't meet his divine feminine until he is completely done with this karmic feminine and all of the unhealed wounds and illusions that he keeps himself and her stuck in order for these two to be wrongly and grossly drawn together. Now take that however it resonates, but that's who both of these people really want, is their soulmates. And they're drawn to each other superficially, and because they each have this weird combination of impulse and control, and they need each other to stare in that very low vibrational mirror, because neither of these people are inclined to self-reflection. And if they are, I feel they're new at it, they're performative, they're not very good at it. And they will become aware of the impulsive nature in this other partner, and that it's problematic and that it's linked to control. They'll become aware of that in this other karmic before they will become aware of it in themselves. But that's meant to be a full-bodied experience that's meant to bridge back, like, oh, wait a second, I do this. This is exactly what I did to my divine feminine or to my divine masculine, because I am the same way. I have my own version of this, but I am the same way. That's the awakening experience that this is meant to lead to. Now, what I mean by this like combination of impulse and control, though, is that more than feelings, these two karmics have impulse. And that impulse is not random. It's not arbitrary. It comes from their feeling space that neither of them are in tune with in themselves. They don't understand that space, and neither of them can internally regulate, I think, at all, or very well. So their feelings bubble up to their conscious mind as an impulse. And that's kind of a very refined energy. Like it's been processed a lot by the time it appears in their conscious mind as an impulse, which means a lot is going on subconsciously. And that might be some kind of ego defense mechanism, like repression. They're repressing something here. Because the raw organic material is the feeling. But it's like these two don't know how to regulate their feelings. So it almost becomes useless for them to become aware of their feelings because they wouldn't know what to do with it. They don't know how to intercept a feeling, understand what it's trying to tell them, and find a healthier, better, fairer way to deal with that feeling. They kind of don't know how to do that. So instead, this impulse seems to provide a solution. But whatever solution it's providing, it really is just a temporary solution that solves the temporary problem of control in the moment. And in the meantime, it creates 1,000 other problems in the process because it's not wise. It's not holistic. It's not thought through. And let's talk about this control element for just a second, because what are these two trying to control? Well, first of all, they're trying to control their feelings. They're trying to internally regulate. They don't know how to do that, and this is their best approximation. So they start to create mess, create drama. I think using their body and schmegduality a lot, and they kind of start to play this like chess game with actual literal human beings, which brings me to the next thing that they are trying to control, which is their partners. And they both really want to control their soulmate partners because their soulmate partners is who they really actually want to be with. And that's how this karmic connection started. In past lives, this is how this started because both of these people really wanted to control their soulmate partners and jumped in with each other as this, it seemed like a good idea. It seemed like a temporary solution to be able to do that. And here's where this gets kind of messed up because in order to do that, you have to lack empathy. You have to not care about how your actions affect your children, your friends, your community, your partner. But where their partner is concerned, they have fed this very negative energy. I just heard entity. Within themselves, where a sense of their partner's panic and a sense of their soulmate, right? A sense of their soulmate's pain and panic actually gives them a sense of sadistic joy because it means that their control tactic is working, which is that right there is exactly the setup of why these soulmates have to break away from their soulmate partner. That right there. That's something that the soulmates don't understand about these two karmic people. It's the sadistic enjoyment because they think that they're regaining the upper hand and it needs to not work, this tactic. But you've got to see it for exactly what it is, right? So they're trying to control their partner, but they're also trying to control their social image because both of these karmics feel a sense of lack. And that sense of lack is exacerbated in relationship with their divine partner, not because their divine partner is like them, controlling and intentionally trying to make them feel weaker and feel lacking in order to engender a sense of dependency. That's what they would do. And there's some kind of weird inverse mirroring between them and their soulmates of, wait a second, you're not like me. But for them to realize that, they've got to get inquisitive about the nature of other people because all human beings have some level of narcissism, but start off very narcissistic. That's how kids learn so quickly because you assume that other people are like you. But remember as a kid when you started to realize, oh, you're not like me, this is how you view the world. That's the realization they need to have in their soulmates. And that's a very healing one because their soulmates, like I've already mentioned, this divine feminine and this karmic's divine masculine, are good at relationships. They're both very cooperative people, which means to be in lack around a person who loves you and is very cooperative and very partnership oriented is to not be in danger. It's not going to be weaponized against you. It's going to be seen. It's going to be taken care of. But it builds a resentment here and their egos are very fragile over here, but they're trying to control their image. And it could be that either in a real sense because of their fuckery of what they've involved with, or these two are very prone to delusions. They could have made up in their mind, oh my gosh, my partner is moving on without me and I don't want to look like the loser. So I'm going to jump in with this other person. I'm going to leave you before you can leave me. It's something like that of managing their social appearance. But I do think that there's something karmic about that going on right now, like current time, because there does seem to be this social element around these karmics, whether they're still together as a couple. They really shouldn't be, but who knows with these two. Because it is very volatile. Again, it's very superficial. There's no depth here and it's kind of just crazy making, but this might have more legs than you think just because of this control element. They're both trying to manage, again, their internal self-esteem and they're partners, but it kind of links back to the way that other people kind of view them, because it seems like maybe to leave this relationship, to break up, is an admission that this was stupid, and they would have to face that in themselves. But also there is a sense of like social judgment, because it's like people know about these two. They either know that they like had an affair, or they sense that, again, there's no depth here. This relationship isn't what it seems to be. It's like watching a train wreck kind of thing, because people kind of know about these two in whatever way they do. But it's like these two are lying to themselves, and they don't ever want to like admit that, because then they'd have to actually do the work. They'd have to admit that this was like wrong, or this was stupid in some kind of way. Anyways, but I feel like all of this is a part of their shared karmas to work out. They need to work out their own internal feeling space, which is buried under their impulsivity. But the feelings that they become aware of, each of them, will repel them both away from each other and from this situation. And there may be an element of the logical mind coming online. And I think that's maybe more on this masculine side. We'll talk about that in a second. But there's a logic here, because there's something about these two, even like as an affair, there's like a cherry on top kind of energy to the wrongness of it, where logically becoming aware of it, it's like, wow, that's really messed up. Because I think that has to do with like the proximity of this affair partner to his children, his family, his partner. Something like that, of like, man, I really had that person up in their face every day. You know, they were pretending to be their friend. That's also going to wake him up to the nature of this other person. Like, dear God, you smiled in my wife's face every day because you fucked in the head. But then he's got to realize, well, I'm fucked in the head too, because I participated in that. You see, it's something here like that. But like I said, all of that's going to repel them away from each other, and it'll draw them back towards their divine path, because neither of these people are on their divine path. Being with each other, but it'll also draw them back towards their genuine soulmates. But to do that, each of these people have to overcome their selfishness and their taker attitude and their somatic narcissism. Now, that is a technical term. It's not a diagnostic term, but it is a technical term. And I'm telling you that because you can look it up on the internet, and it's going to give you a lot of information. And some of you might want to do that. It's been a while since I've looked into like the different categories of narcissists that people have, but I know that is one of them. There's a lot of information. You might want to look it up just to see if that fits this masculine to a T, or if it fits this karmic to a T, or both of them. There might be something there for you in terms of your processing. But outside of like whatever the technical meaning of that is, I'm getting some messages here, because somatic basically is like tied to the body. And I feel like that's what each of these karmics have in common, is they have some type of, there's a way that they relate to the body, their own body, and I think other people's bodies, like their schmegsual partners' bodies, but also schmegs, that is highly narcissistic and self-involved. So now it comes through different. Now keep in mind, there's a lot of mirroring between these two and a lot of shared energy, but so it might be flipped, or it might be more shared, but the way it's coming through for me is, I think for this masculine, the way that this kind of somatic narcissism comes through for him is, I think he's really a creature of lust. I think he can't keep it in his pants. There could be a schmegs addiction here. He doesn't think, and he doesn't want to have to think. So when an opportunity presents itself, he is very selfish. That's that narcissism. And again, the lack of empathy, where he doesn't think about how that action is going to affect his kids, his family. He doesn't think about that, and he doesn't want to have to think about that. That's what I think he's become aware of in this situation, because he wasn't thinking about it, but there's somebody that he involved with where it's like, man, her friend, her sister, she knows this person. I am fucked up. Like, that's wrong. But he didn't think about it. But there's some quality here that he can become aware of just think about it, dude. Right. So that's one way. I also think that, there could be a sense of, I don't know, like if he's trying to control his partner, like, I'm going to go sleep with this totally opposite person than you, or somebody that I feel like is more attractive in this way or that way. Or I know that you have this certain insecurity about your whatever, and this person has a good one of whatever that is. So I'm going to go sleep with that person. That's what I'm saying. Narcissistic, fucked up, dysfunctional. There's something in like to do with that for this guy. But with this, this karmic feminine, I feel like her nature is, I'm hearing the word advantageous. So I feel like she could use her body in a way that she feels like is advantageous. Now take that however it resonates. There could be enhancements here. I'm not against enhancements. I'm just saying the space where it comes from kind of matters, right? And this is somebody who wants to compete, wants something here to be advantageous. The sense of competition is strong with this one, but also wants to use her body and schmegduality as a way, as a means of competing, establishing dominance, inflicting harm, and really usurping someone else. And that's where these two differ. And that's a part of their mirror here as well. That's where they're kind of opposites, because they have this dysfunctional way of relating to schmegs in the body. His is very, I don't think about it. I'm just like a slave to impulse. Hers, she very much thinks about it. And I think that's something, that's what I'm saying, to understand the truth here. Is to kind of be repelled away from this space. She very much thinks about it. There is a strategy, and her sense of, she wants to be like sexually dominant, but it's like somebody's got to choose her over them. But really all this is like extremely messed up. So, yeah, take that however it resonates here. But that's really what I'm getting. Now that brings me to the karma that I feel like is going on right now, because all of this connection, this entire situation has been highly karmic since the beginning, because everybody here is like learning their different lessons and stuff. But there is some kind of karma that I feel like is coming to fruition now. So remember, this divine feminine here is taking her power back, and that's affecting this space because she is, I think, deciding what is worthy of her investment and what's not. So she could be receding from this space. Now the thing though is, because this masculine loves to go over to this divine feminine, refill, and whatever he's given, I think, to this karmic feminine ain't his to give, bitch, ain't his to give. This divine feminine calling her power back, I think, has some kind of tangible effect on these two, because energetically it is hers and she's supported when the universe pulls it back. So there's something here that I think this karmic feminine, karmic masculine think is theirs, and it's not. And I think the same is true for the divine masculine over here on this feminine side. And so that could be going down here. But this this masculine here that we've been talking about is currently having some kind of internal contemplative experience, and that is a part of the karmas here. But something else, right, is brewing. Something else is a build in here. And it feels like it's happening in the physical, or it's gearing up to happen in the physical. And it has to do with this karmic feminine, because she has noticed this masculine has pulled back in some way. Something has changed and she doesn't like that. She notices that he's withdrawn or contemplative or removed from her in some way. Even if they're not together, like maybe he used to text her, but now it's, oh, I'm sorry, I'm busy at work. She knows something's like off. Remember, she's all about attention and impulse and control. And she's not getting enough of the attention that she feels entitled to. That's some mirroring here, because he feels entitled to something that is this divine feminine's, and his attention belongs to him, but she feels entitled to it, to feed off of it, establish a sense of dominance, which manages her self-esteem and regulates her internal space. All of that's a functioning dysfunction, right? But she is planning on doing something here, something I think explosive and dramatic and messy in order to get his attention back. But she needs it. I mean, I'm lying, but that's how she's thinking about it. She needs it to regulate her internal space, right? In order to get her self-esteem back and her sense of dominance back. So I think she's actively planning something explosive here. And that might have to do with this divine feminine, because I think these two cheat on each other. If they're involved with each other, even if they're in a quote unquote relationship, LOL. Even if these two are married, this is not a relationship that you or I would recognize, because they deploy no relationship qualities or tactics. That might actually be confusing though, because both of these people are takers. And so if they learn about relationships, they'll talk the relationship talk, and it'll sound like maybe they're relationship people, but you'll notice that it's all about taking. It's all about their needs, right? Oh, well, they didn't meet my needs. But they never mention what they give. Because to be in a relationship and to be mature is to think about what you give to a space. And I can't remember if I already said this before, but and these are also very slippery fish too, because they would hear somebody like me say something like that and they'd be like, oh shit, my freak is hanging out. Like somebody's going to be able to become aware that I'm this selfish person. But instead of, oh wow, I just got called out and I should really deal with this at the root. Instead, they will do some kind of performance where they will pretend to talk about what they give to a space, but it'll be very shallow and like very passing, and it'll just be a checklist. And it's just to keep this dysfunction going. They have no interest in that. in breaking this cycle. At least I feel like this karmic feminine doesn't. This masculine at this current time is in a more contemplative space. But I feel like this karmic feminine, she might well be looking at this divine feminine, because like I said, these two cheat on each other. And so I don't think that it is a surprise that he would cheat. I think it's the feelings that bother her. There could have been some kind of conversation or some kind of interaction or some kind of messaging that she witnessed. And this could be between him and his divine feminine, but this could be something else entirely, because another aspect, I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place here. It has to do with the feelings. Cause again, there's no feelings in this space. None. I mean, they pretend it, and they like to keep each other distracted because they're in devil energy, they both feel like that's a benefit of this connection. Oh, finally, I don't have to think about my feelings. But, so I think, again, they keep each other distracted through drama, schmegs, fighting, and potentially like going on vacations or to concerts and people do these kinds of things. It's the way in which this couple uses this, right? Now, the other thing though, is it might not be this divine feminine or it might not be this divine masculine. It could be somebody else entirely. And this is something that's interesting. So I feel like this other person kind of coming in, and I think I talked about this earlier, right? Between, this karmic masculine, this karmic feminine, there's somebody else. And I do feel, for a lot of these people that it is somebody that they've got their shit together. They're more like this. They're a divine masculine or a divine feminine themselves. Even if, and they might well be like a soulmate, like a friend soulmate, to each of these people or something like that. But I feel this person coming in, and I feel they are going to be propositioned in some way. It might not be overt, but the option will definitely be there for this person to jump into, I think, an affair with one of these people. And I think they're not going to do it. But even if they do it, because they might have their own karmas to work out with, one of these people and their own natures and stuff. But they're much further along, I think. They're even if they do it, then it's it's still very karmic, because I do think there's actually feelings there, like with this other person, because this is like a great person or something here. But I think for most of them, they're going to say no. And it's because they have principles and virtues. They have self-discipline. They are self-reflective, and they care about their partner. Maybe they have a family, and they know that whatever instant gratification they could get by sleeping with some strange ass, for the night, or even for a longer term thing, this is a person who has empathy. They don't want to hurt their partner. They don't want to harm their children. So I think they're going to say no, or they might well not be interested, they just might, but I feel like they're going to say no. And that is meant to spark this kind of divine comparison energy. And I think the other partner is going to be aware of it, because I don't know which one, if it's the karmic feminine or the karmic masculine, I don't know which one of them is going to make a move here on this other person that's coming in. They might well both make some kind of move. One of them in a schmegsual way, the other one in this weird territorial, I'm competitive, I want to start some shit kind of way. But they're very good. They're very slick with that. It could be both, because I think both of these karmics are aware of that energy being present, and it is meant to spark a reflection. They're supposed to compare themselves to this person, and they're supposed to compare their partner to this person. And then that's meant to get them reflecting about their divine partners, their divine soulmate that I think they've already met, or something here like that. Because if, okay, let's say this is a feminine that's coming in here, and it's this masculine wants to make a move to have an affair with this feminine, and his karmic feminine is aware and wants to start some shit, right? I think that when, this karmic feminine is meant to compare herself to this person who said no, who didn't jump into an affair with this masculine energy. It's supposed to have her have some realizations here about herself, right? And also about her partner. And he is in being rejected by this feminine energy that's coming in. He's supposed to start having some realizations about the person that he's with, this karmic feminine, because this is the stronger energy. This is much more impressive. And there may well be karmas that these people kind of all have to work out, because I think whoever this is, I think it's a soulmate, but I think it's like a friend soulmate. And maybe they did jump in physically, but it is a different energy than the the other like soulmate energies that I'm seeing. So anyways, I hope that that made sense. I know this was a very long reading. I'll probably title this something like the most extensive reading on the internet about this like messed up third party situation. But that is what I have for you. So I think I'm going to wrap that up there. Thank you for listening. If that resonates, if you found value of this, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. By the way, this is one of those readings. You can probably hear my voice is going. It's been a long one. It's taken me some time to kind of get this message, but if you found this valuable and you can toss a couple of bucks in my tip jar, that would be appreciated. If not, don't worry about it. But I'm gonna leave that there. Bye guys.